if you are there watching this, I want you to please celebrate Nnenna. Yes, thank you, Sunday Kenneth. It's nice to thank you so much,
Mm,
Sunday Kenneth. Uh, all right, so I'll go straight to the questions. We'll have the conversations immediately so that
mhm,
we don't waste any more time. So I'm going straight to the questions. We talked about last time we were able to have the sessions, and we were talking about how people think of ideas, and we really get
mm,
crazy about our ideas. We get so enthusiastic, we get so positive, and sometimes that kind of positivity can be blinding to the realities on ground. It can be so can get us all worked up. We want to get this thing started, and then without proper validation, without proper due diligence on that idea, we go all out to start executing them, and it
mm,
backfires. Okay, so one of the things that we want to look at is why these ideas eventually fail. In fact, they are great ideas, of course, but then they fail. Is it the idea? Is it the person who did not take cognizance of the realities on the ground? So,
mm.
from your perspective, from your experience in marketing, from your experience with business strategy, um, can you help us understand what are the factors to consider during the ideation process?
Okay. So I think the most important thing, and I think this is probably where I find when I advise a lot of startups. Um,
Okay.
and I guess the first question I ask them is, what is the problem you're solving and who are you solving it for?
All right.
Um, I think often we have an idea for something that's really cool. Um, Often it's something that is an output of our own personal experience. Like, so it's something we've had difficulty with. Um, but I think sometimes what startups miss is there a large enough addressable population as this problem um, that needs it solved? And are you solving it in the way that they need? I think so. It's really the biggest. I think the first issue is, what is the problem that you're solving? Are you really clear? Like, is it an actual problem? Is it a real thing? Are there enough people who have this problem, have this need, have this desire? And then does your solution actually work in the way that makes sense for them? So I find that that's usually the issue, right? Like, it's a great idea, but either your addressable population is too small for it to be a viable business, or it's not really a problem, or it's a real problem and you have an addressable solution, but your solution, you have an addressable population, but your solution isn't solving it the way they need it to be solved, right? Like, you have a great idea. What I find is that people have really great ideas. Where they struggle is in the implementation. And a lot of times it's in the implementation, in the detail of bringing that thing to market, that, things sometimes fall through the cracks.
All right, all right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And do you think when people struggle with implementation, is it that they don't have a well thought out idea, or even having a well thought out idea, they are not basically aware with what the situation really is. They're just thinking, oh, out of the box. A lot of people, we prioritize thinking out of the box. Sometimes you don't even bother about thinking within or even around the box. And so when we start thinking out of the box, we are basically most of the times thinking about what we think
Mhm.
works for us, not for other people. So sometimes the solution we're thinking that is out of the box is something that we feel will be great for others.
Mhm.
But in the end, that's not really what they want. It's just what you think will make them feel good. So um, what do you think is what would you say are the uh, pros, the consequences of using your experience? Because I've been in a lot of places, and then they when you engage people, they'll tell you, oh, I've been 5 years in this, I've been 10, 15 years in this, and I believe this can work. Okay,
Mm.
I believe this is going to go this way. So I've seen it over time. Maybe it's possible that that thing has been reoccurring, but then because you just feel like because you've seen them over and again means that that validates what you've been saying, means for you that it will work. But what do
So
you
I think
think are the pros and cons of relying on your experience as the basis for saying that this idea will work?
yeah. So I think that there's two things, right? I think that there's, can the idea work and can I implement it effectively? So before we even get into the pros and cons, right? I think a lot of times there are great ideas that could work. We just don't implement them correctly. We don't build what needs to be
Hmm.
built. We don't target the right people. We don't
Okay.
think through to the end process. I find a lot of times what happens is that people have a great idea, but they don't take the time to actually think about all the requirements for bringing this idea to life and to market, right? They don't
Yeah.
think through the actual delivery of the practical idea in the real world in detail. And so often what happens is, oh, I have this great idea. I want to build a solution that, helps mothers know when to feed their children, right? But we don't think about,
Okay.
okay, what should the UX look like? Which mothers
Okay.
is this suitable for? You know,
Okay.
do I have is the way that I'm giving them the information? There was a solution that I saw in Cannes, that P&G has, where they changed the packaging for detergent. What I thought
Okay.
was really great was something an adult can do with one hand, and many people who are doing laundry in America are doing it with a child in one hand, right? So they've thought about
Okay.
the solution down to the how it's actually going to be used in the real world. And I find that that's the biggest problem, is that people don't think from the customer's perspective, how is this thing going to
Hmm.
actually work in the real world when it comes to actually
Okay.
making it real? So, but back to your
Okay.
question about using your own experience, I think that's what you have to do. I don't think that anybody has ever had a really good idea that wasn't born out of their own experience, right?
Okay.
Like you are the first person to either experience the challenge or to see the challenge play out, right? So you have to be
Yeah.
building from your own experience. You can't build from somebody else's. I think that what
Hmm.
you're talking about is, once you've had the idea, what is the next step to validating, right? Because
Okay.
I can look at something and go, oh, I wish there were a faster way to do that. But then
Okay.
what I have to then check is, one, are there enough people in the world that think that this is also a thing they would like to make easier? And two, are they willing to pay for it? Am I going to be,
Okay.
or am I able to deliver it to them in a way that I can make money somewhere else? I think a
Okay.
lot of times I see people that have an idea, they don't have a business plan, right? They're not
Okay.
thinking about this like from a practical, how is this thing going to make money? What is my fee structure? Why am I charging what I'm charging? When am I going to break even? I think that it's one thing to have an idea, it's another thing to build a business. Ideas
Okay.
are great, right? But to actually make it work in the real world and have it eventually be something that can at least fund itself and hopefully fund your life, you've got to build a business plan. And to do a business plan, you've got to do the research. You've got to see, from a competitive perspective, what are all the other ways, not just who is doing something like me, but what are all the other ways your end customer gets this activity done, right? What are the pros and cons of that? How much money are they spending in this space? What do they like or
Okay.
not like about how they're engaging in this space already, right? If you write a business plan, it literally forces you to ask all those questions and answer them, and that's how you know whether or
Mhm.
not you have something that's viable.
Okay. All right. That's great. I mean, to an extent, I feel like business plans these days can really be cooked up, so
Hmm.
people don't pay attention to those things because they just probably want to raise money. They want to get revenue. I mean, a startup capital to for that business, but they don't put so much effort into um, asking the right question. So they
Hmm.
just want to sound great in the business plan, but then
Yeah, but I
in the
think
real
that
world.
people misunderstand what a business plan is for.
Okay. You want to get
Yes,
clarity on that.
right, yes. Having a solid business plan can get you funding,
Okay.
but a business plan is for your business, right? What is
Okay.
it?
Yeah.
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Your
Hmm.
business plan is the blueprint for how you're going to make your business real. So if you
Okay.
don't like spend the time to ask the right questions, to do the due diligence, you're not shortchanging anybody but yourself. Because
All
what your
right.
business plan will do is show you where your challenges are going to be, right? Because your
Okay.
business plan requires that you think about your competitive set, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, right? Where are the opportunities? Where is there no point going because it's going to take you too long and too much money to unseat them. Your business plan is going to help you understand who your actual customer is and what they want and how many of them are there and where they are and how you need to reach them. Your business plan is going to help you decide how much you charge for your services or product. And what that looks like, and what that means for how long it will take you to become profitable. Like your business plan is literally the plan for your business. So if you
I,
just, cobble something together with ChatGPT, you're literally shortchanging yourself, right? Your business plan
yeah.
isn't for your investor. Your business plan is for you. You can write an investment note. You can do a sales deck. There's lots of ways you can get money. Your business plan is how am I actually going to do this thing in real life in a way
Okay.
that makes money, right? Like that's what your business plan is for.
Oh, right. That's good. Thank you very much because I needed to clear that AI is obviously doing a lot of crazy stuff and people feel they can cut corners and get what they want. And then obviously just great that you had to clear it out that the business plan is not really for investors to look at and give you money. It's for you to know your next steps and whether you're going to fail in whatever you're doing or not. So tell
Mhm.
us, what do you think business people or people in product you've worked with, startups, what do you think most of these guys they focus more during their ideation process that customers, their markets really do not prioritize? What do you think they have? They put more effort into trying. They spend, majoring on the minor, and obviously those things really do not count for the customer. What do you think that
I
would be?
think it I think it depends on the background of the founder, right? If your
Okay.
founder is an engineer, is a technical person, they are
Yes.
very they tend to be very interested in like what is the most elegant way to solve the problem, right? Here's an
Um,
interesting problem. Here's a really elegant engineering solution. And it's
okay.
about the technology, right? Um,
Hmm.
Customers don't give a what's it about your technology. Like they really don't. Like there might be six people like that care about how you built it. What they care about is the experience and the utility, right?
Okay.
And so often when you work with, especially for tech founders, where they're engineering people, sometimes I'm like, why is this the feature that you're like prioritizing first, right? Who told you that this is the thing? Well, that's a really interesting problem, and we found this really. I'm like, yes, but that's not what your customer is actually trying to solve for, right?
Okay.
So that's one thing. I think when you have a founder that is non-technical, um,
Hmm.
often they focus a lot on like what the end user experience should be, and have a less precise understanding of what it takes to deliver it, right?
Okay.
And so
Okay.
like, oh yeah, I want this thing, and you're like, but you can't build it, right? I want to build, an 8-story building out of matchsticks, but then it should move. I'm like, no, that's not like in the real world, like the laws of physics don't allow, right? Um, and so I think, there has to be really successful products, I think,
Hmm.
strike a balance between doing something really great and delivering a
Hmm.
great experience for the customer and actually being practical, right? And actually being
Okay.
something you can actually put out in the world. And then you
Hmm.
improve. And I think the other things that I found with a lot of startups is that they want to have 100% of everything they want. I'm like, no, Apple is releasing updates every day, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you have to figure out what is the path, the roadmap for your product. What is, people talk about an MVP. I like to talk about a minimal, lovable product as opposed to viable,
Okay.
right? Like, what
Okay.
is your minimal
Okay.
lovable product? Like, what is the very least you can do that's still going to make people excited about your product, and do that first. And then you can always add, right? Because you want to always be announcing, you want to always be launching. Um, it's never going to be perfect. So I think also people often are waiting for perfection. So I think that the big challenges are either they're tech people who aren't really thinking about their end user, they're
Yeah.
non-tech people who aren't really thinking about the practicality of the build, or as a team, they're waiting for everything to be completely perfect. And sometimes, you just gotta like gather what you got and like head out, right?
All right.
and
Okay.
and take it to market. Um,
Right.
and then the other thing that I find that I have discovered that I find quite shocking is how little testing people do.
Okay.
Like, and some of these are big brands, right? Like they have a thing and they push it out into the world. I'm like, and it doesn't work. I'm like, did you test this thing? They're like, no, we were rushing and we went live. I'm like, yeah, but now like this thing doesn't work. And we see it
All
all the
right.
time in all these categories. I mean, I don't know, who you bank with, but I feel like, right? They
Yeah.
launched the
Yeah.
app
Yeah.
or they launched the thing. And I'm like, but this thing doesn't work. Did you test it? Like, oh, we're testing it in a live environment. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Of course, doesn't. It doesn't.
It's called a
I
live
had.
environment for a
Mm-hmm.
reason. It's not
All
a
right.
test. It's not a place where you
A
do
very much.
testing, right?
Okay. All right.
So I think I think at the end of the day, you have to be just sensible, right? And you have to be
Okay.
practical. We have arrived at a time in the world where you could build almost anything, right? There's very
Yeah.
little that's actually out of reach. And the thing about AI is you don't even have to know how to code anymore. AI will write better code than anybody, right? So instead of
Mm-hmm.
like trying to build something and then trying to shove it down people's throats, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about what people really want and then build that, right?
Okay.
Going back to solving an actual problem that lots of people have that they're willing to pay for.
All right.
And there's still many of them in the world that literally, like, you're still spoiled for choice. Like, there's
Okay.
still many, 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 many things in the world that people are solving for.
Yeah. Great.
You know.
Thank you very much. I think about what people are willing to pay for. I
Mm,
had a question for that, but then, some ideas are sometimes when I hear some ideas some people have, and in my honest opinion to them, I'll
mm,
just tell them, make this a charity. Okay, make it a charity, make it not for profit. You
mm,
don't have to make money off this idea, but they want to make money. I don't know how they want to go about it.
mm,
Maybe it is idea. The idea may not necessarily give them the funding, but
mm,
obviously they have to work a way around funding that. But then they
mm,
are so focused about monetizing something that shouldn't be monetized. I mean, that would make more sense if it was for a social impact. So,
mm.
how do you go about trying to understand what their ideas fit into, how it will better sell, and how it will better break even? How do you help? How do people get to segment this? What do you think can help them?
Um, it kind of goes back to your business plan, right? Because your business
Okay.
plan, part of your business plan is your business model, right? And so
Okay.
writing your business plan is actually the first test of whether or not you have an actual business, right?
Okay.
Because in your business plan, you have to do costing, right? How much is it going to
Mm-hmm.
cost you to develop, build, launch, sustain this thing for, between, 2 to 5 years, depending on how long your business plan is. And what is the like realistically revenue for net potential? And then you look at
Okay.
the two and you go, okay, most businesses break even around 5 years. So if
Mm-hmm.
you do your business modeling and you're still in the red after 8 years, then you have to think about whether or not this is a viable business.
Okay.
Um, no, I think, and at the end of the day, I feel like the bigger issue is that people don't think about where the money is going to come from the beginning. And I
Okay.
think if you're going to build a product, yes, it's great to like be passionate about something and be really interested in solving a problem. But once you've decided you want to take something to market, you have to think
Mm-hmm.
commercially, right? You have to think, how much is it going to cost to deliver, and how much can I make, and
Yeah.
then what's the gap? And I
Okay.
think that's literally, I tell people, most of us who are building things for communities and segments that if we're
Mm-hmm.
not a direct part of, we have access to people that are.
Yeah.
So the first thing to do is, okay, if you had a product like this, would you pay for it and how much would you pay? Ask, right? Ask this thing that this product or service does, how do you get it done right now? Like, what is your current solution for whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is? What don't you like about it? How much do you spend getting this thing done? Right? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're creating something that doesn't already exist, but there's very few end user needs that aren't
Okay.
currently being met. They may be being met badly, and people
Okay.
may be really unhappy with that solution, but most people have a way of doing most things,
All
right?
right.
So the thing that you want to do, those people that are doing that thing, how are they doing it? Ask them, how are you doing it now? How much are you spending on doing it? What don't you like about the way it happens now? And then, then you can figure out if your solution is going to like be a better
Yeah.
option for them. Because, unless you're creating a completely new thing, which is rare. If you think about, people, in when you talk about tech right now, fintech is, well,
Yeah.
at least up until fintech winter, um, was really popular, right? But it's not as if they were doing anything new.
Yeah.
Banks have been around for centuries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every generation of banking um, leverages whatever technology is available at the time to make that experience better or safer or faster or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's checking, it's loans, it's credits, right? So the thing that you're doing isn't that different. It might be a better way to do it or a more innovative way. So understanding how people are doing something currently, um, and how much they're spending doing it, whether that's money, whether that's time, can help you sort of understand how to shape your solution so that there's an advantage to it, and so that's worth their time, it's worth their energy, and ultimately worth their money, because that's what we're here for. I think I might have lost Jude.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can, yes.
All right. So yeah, back to the my question on
Hmm.
what businesses prioritize these days. So when we talked about the customer earlier, what, in your opinion, do you think startups prioritize that do not really matter to people who want to put their money for if they eventually want to invest? What do you think they prioritize that these guys do not give a damn about investors?
I think, interestingly enough, um, it's probably innovation, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Like, when I talk to VCs and I talk to PE guys, they're like, yeah, we like things that are novel,
Okay.
but we like things that are novel in a way that we might be able to exit without losing our shirts, right? And I
Okay.
think that, what's interesting is like we're at a time where specifically tech investing is maturing, right? And you
Yeah.
have to remember that, everything, categories are, right, evolving and they mature. I think, 5, 6, 10 years ago, it was all new. The internet was, everything was new. And so people were just making wild bets, right? And so you didn't have to prove that you had a revenue model because they didn't
Yeah.
really, nobody understood it. Um, Given where we are now globally in terms of the economy, in terms of the fact that lots of investors have lost a lot of money on innovative solutions that like
Yeah.
ended up not being viable.
Okay.
More and more now, I'm hearing people talking about traction. I'm hearing people really stress testing the business model.
Okay.
Right? Your revenue projections, are they realistic? So
Mm-hmm.
innovation is great, right? We're the first, we're the only, all of that is great, but it's only useful if there's a business model that makes sense. Um,
Okay.
and so if you are a founder and you don't have, you know, a, a business minded person, is why a lot of times investors will, give you money and then hire you a grown up CEO or COO, because you
Okay.
have to like run the business, right? It's not
Yeah.
the idea, it's not the technology, the business itself has, like, the operational piece has to happen. Um, and so I like to say when you have founders, I think that the magic triangle is you have the tech person, you have a marketing person, and you have an ops person, right?
Okay.
So that you can run the business from the beginning. You're thinking about how I'm going to sell this thing, how, because marketing isn't just the selling, it's the revenue collection,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Engineers
Yeah.
as a, how are we delivering this thing at a price point that allows us to make our money back, right?
Mhm.
um so I think that, while it's good to be innovative and it's good to be novel, I think that investors now are really like, is this a really viable business model, right? How long till, revenue? Um,
Okay. Yeah.
how long to break even? How long to profit, right? And some money is more patient than others, but all money
Okay.
at some point is looking for the
Yeah.
other money to come and join it.
Hmm. That's true. That's true. Thank you very much. So I would ask this now: is
Mhm.
it possible to turn um, an unprofitable idea in quote to a hot selling product? I mean, there's a lot of magic that goes on these days with marketing.
Mhm.
I think I was sharing with Sean the other day how I was using a particular brand.
Mhm.
They are obviously all over the market right now. I went to use the solution and I got frustrated out of the on my user journey. I got frustrated
Mhm.
out. I had to quickly remove, I don't want to call names, but I had to quickly delete them off my application. I wanted
Mhm.
to use the solution that they were providing, but then it didn't make sense to me. I couldn't make payments. I couldn't use
Mhm.
my card details and some other things that were just not working. So, is it possible that you could have a not profitable idea and then it turns into a hot selling product? And then how does that scale? Is it possible that it could just happen out of magic? People get into the market, a rush, they're
Mhm.
everywhere, and the next minute they're nowhere. You can't hear about them anymore. So, what do you think?
Do I think you can turn an unprofitable idea into a hot? Absolutely, right?
Okay.
Um, because I think, look, depending on what it is and what it does, um, consumers are motivated by different kinds of things in different categories, right? Um, so, when it comes to my money, right, utility is the most important thing. Your brand can
Okay.
be as cool as possible, but is it useful? Does it do what I need it to do? And am I safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's, you know, a social engagement platform, right? The experience and the bandwagon effect, right? How
Yeah.
many other people are involved become much more important. So I think what matters is understanding what you're building and who you're building it for. If we take a look at, a big brand like Apple, right? For many, many years,
Okay.
Apple was nowhere, right? They were literally nowhere, right? They were this
Mhm.
tiny little brand, super niche, not particularly profitable, right? Um, and what they really did was they changed their design aesthetic, right? And Apple products
Mhm.
became beautiful, right? The
Yeah.
Apple computer went from being literally a white box to this beautiful glowing
Yeah.
core, right? They changed the conversation around personal computing.
Okay.
iPod was not the first music player, but they changed the conversation and they did a really simple thing. They just organized music better than anybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you can just fix one thing,
And then
and then
changes
that's what
everything.
makes the difference. And that thing doesn't even always have to be like the heart of the solution. It doesn't have to
Okay.
be technology. Sometimes it's the form. Sometimes it's the way that the personality of the brand.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is that most categories are at parity,
Okay.
right? Most categories, if you look at solutions from different companies
Mm-hmm.
and just look at the feature list, they're almost identical,
Okay.
right? There's
Yeah.
very few categories in which there's somebody that does something that nobody else does.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very rare,
Yeah.
right? Um, but brands become successful because either they have understood emotionally right?
Mm-hmm.
What the customer is looking for. So Virgin is a great example of this. Like
Okay.
I'm sort of using big brands that people will know, right? From an airline perspective, when Virgin Airlines launched, they were really the anti-British Airways, right? Flying at, and this is, many years ago, and many of your listeners will not be old enough to
Okay.
remember life before Virgin.
All right.
So people used to get dressed up to fly. It was like this very formal, kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuffy, like, and Virgin was like, yeah, no, right? Like, be fun, be
Yeah.
cool. And people just wanted, right,
Yeah.
their travel experiences to be associated with something that was cooler, more fun, more relaxed. So they didn't like change the kind of plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a plane. It goes from one place to another.
Okay.
There's nothing super tangible in the Virgin experience,
Yeah.
but they put in a bar, right? There was a bar on the plane. That was a big thing. There was a
Yeah.
bar in upper class, right? Which is like, it doesn't really change, like, it's not about the efficiency of the
Yeah.
plane. It doesn't make
Yeah.
it cheaper. Like, it doesn't practically change their experience,
Mm-hmm.
but it added to the vibe, right? So the traveling was it was an experiential change,
Yeah. Yeah.
not a tactical or practical change or a functional one. And so I think, you can look at how you solving a problem, but also there are lots of emotional problems that you want to solve as well. People want to feel smart. People want to feel beautiful. People want to feel loved. They want to feel cool. And so if you can deliver on an emotional benefit, sometimes that emotional benefit is actually
Yeah.
much stronger and more sustainable. I mean, I won't name it, but there's one of the big Nigerian banks, which, I guess 20 years ago was an upstart, but now they're, a big established brand. And it is widely acknowledged that their service is mediocre.
Okay.
Right? It is widely acknowledged.
Okay.
People talk about, it's widely acknowledged that they don't have great service.
Mm-hmm.
But people flock to them because of what they think about the brand,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's an association, it's an emotional association with what they stand for.
Yeah.
And as long as they are not cheating me, right?
Yeah.
As long as I have, and again, also as a market where we are much more forgiving of
Okay.
mediocrity than some other places, right? So people are willing to put up with a little bit of discomfort for the emotional benefit that they get,
Mm-hmm.
feeling associated with this brand, right? It's why so many brands invest in marketing, because they understand that, as logical as any of us think we are, human beings are primarily driven by emotion.
Yeah.
And so as long as you meet the hygiene, you have to work, right? You have to meet the hygiene factors.
Okay.
People are only going to forgive you for so long, right? So you've got to get, like, that 70% actual, like, functionality. And then the rest of the decision is really like, what do I, and we do it yourself. What do I feel about this brand, right? If you look at, we'll take cars, Mercedes, and I do the comparison all the time. If you look at Mercedes, you look at BMW,
Mm-hmm.
at every price point, they have a car that, if you look at the specs, is pretty much the same. It's the same car, right? Like, literally, you look at the specs, the size of the engine, it's the same car. But people feel very different. People who buy BMWs usually don't buy Mercedes. And people who buy Mercedes usually don't buy BMW, right? And they will tell you why it's different. But I'm like, but it's the same car. Right? Like, it's got four wheels, it's got the same engine, it's got the same spec. But the brand, which is the idea about your business, the idea about your service, that can make the difference. And you can build that functionally, you can build that emotionally, you can build that with some combination of the two. But again, it goes back to understanding what you're solving, what problem you're solving, and who you're solving it for. Right? And so, is the problem practical? Is the problem emotional? Right?
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Please, if you are listening, I know a lot of persons are already here. Please kindly drop your images, drop your comments. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been awesome having you, Nnenna. I also have question. Okay. There are a few more questions we can take before. So, okay. How do you create a high value proposition? There's a lot of businesses today that came out of would I say they just came out of the blue. How business used to operate before was okay. like I was sharing with some persons yesterday, said my mom would just decide, okay, I want to do business. I want to do business. It's not even an idea. She just wants to do
Mm,
business. Okay. So, and then she comes up and, right, I'm going to start selling this in the neighborhood. And she goes on, pour in money into it, get people to get all the
mm,
things she needs to get it done. And once she starts selling, you find out that most most of the time we end up consuming more than half of what she bought to sell to people, right? So she sells to consume more than
mm,
half of the product that was supposed to be bought by people. And then I look around and I see that what she's actually selling, there's someone to the left, there's someone to
mm,
the right. She's basically doing the same thing. She did not understand what is she going to be doing different. So everything is basically going around. And so many
mm,
businesses came up like that. Many
mm,
businesses we have today, they just came out of, oh, in my room I just thought about this, and then they pour money into it. Some of
mm,
them are lucky to still be pushing and striving today, not because they are actually maybe making sales, but they just don't want to go and retire. They don't want to pack their loads and go home, go to the
mm,
village and relax. So how do you create a high value proposition for that business that is already existing? It could be that you're selling different stuff, and that's the area, that's
mm,
where we do business, especially in Nigeria here. The MSMEs that just go into, let me get a lot of stuff. This is what my customers are asking. They go and stock it up in the shop. So how do you create a
mm,
value proposition? How do you create a brand identity? Even if what you're just doing is selling a car, even if what you're just doing is selling detergents, even if what you're just doing is just selling basic things that people need, how do I
mm.
create a value proposition or an identity around what I do that will improve the outcome of my business?
Um, there's, I think it's Maya Angelou that said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I
Yeah.
think for small service businesses, that's really it. When I think about my own self, my own experience, the MSMEs that I patronize consistently, the people that I'm always going back to, it's
Mm.
because they have great customer service, right?
Okay.
Um, so they have great customer service. They know me. So I have a tailor that I've been using for years, and he's like a five, well, not 5K, he's used to be my 5K tailor, right? But he
Okay.
has a picture of everything he's ever made for me.
Hmm. Oh.
So he'd be like, no, auntie, you've already done that style. Right?
Okay.
I have the girl that I buy hair from. Every
Mm-hmm.
time I buy hair, she sends me like a small gift, right? A spray
Oh.
bottle or hair ornaments or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have people, that do things for me, that if they haven't seen me in a while, they call me. I don't
Okay.
even just this. We haven't seen you in a while. Is everything okay, right? They remember, my husband and what he likes. So I think service is the experience is the biggest differentiator when it comes
Okay.
to like those kind of micro businesses. Um, I think integrity, people that you can trust, right? They're not going to cheat me. They're not going to lie. They deliver on time. They do what they're going to say to you. That really matters. That's part of the experience. Um, People that have the things that I want, right? Is it, so if I'm selling akara, is it the kind of akara do people like one that has onion? Do people like one that, is
Yeah.
it akara they want, or should you be okay? Is it akara and puff puff, right?
Okay.
Or the people that come to buy akara, is there, if there's a woman that sells drinks, maybe we move our things close together so that, okay, when you buy akara
Okay.
from me, you
Okay.
can go
Okay.
and they'll
Okay.
give you the drink for 10 naira less, right? There's ways to keep customers coming back, but it's really about how you're delivering a great experience for them.
Mm.
So whether that is in your product selection, whether that is in literally, customer relationship management, I can't tell you, and you don't need massive infrastructure. If you have a phone and just keep a list of customers, get their phone number, remember what they bought, remember their name, those are the
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things that keep people coming back to one person.
Yeah.
Because the truth of it is, especially at that scale, you're doing business with a person, not a business, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't feel the same way about, Attila that sews my clothes. I don't think about that relationship the same way that I think about my relationship with Apple, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So at
Okay.
that scale, the personal touch is really important. And in this market, customer service is a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
right? At every level. So anytime you have a great experience as a customer, you
Mm-hmm.
remember and you'll come back.
Yeah.
If you have a consistently great experience, you might even be willing to pay a little bit more just because it's more pleasant,
Okay.
right? So I think it's really about investing at that scale, investing in the experience of your customers.
Oh, great, great. Thank you very much. Thank you. I mean, it's getting very exciting. Please keep dropping your comments. I see you. Thank you, Sukomi, for being here. Thank you, Sunday. Thank you, Wapweze. Thank you, Rose of Food. Yes, thank you. I hope you're enjoying the session. Let's know in the comments. So, tell us, um, what can you give us like a journey
Mhm,
from this great idea, if you have had any, from a great idea you have into the journey from you having the great idea and to the path of you trying to get it validated.
mhm,
Are you able to think through the idea? Was it something you felt, okay, after my validation, I could go on with this idea, or did you throw it in the parking lot? So, can
mhm,
you give us a scenario like that so that someone who is um, thinking about something to do, and the
mhm.
person can see some steps, some practical steps to take in terms of from your thinking to your action phase? I would like
Okay.
to hear that.
Well, I guess the only great idea that I've had so far is the agency.
Okay.
So it's an interesting thing, right? Because we're not the first agency or the only agency, right? In Nigeria, there's lots and lots of agencies.
Mm-hmm.
But when my partner and I, when the opportunity came to start our own agency, um, we were both coming in with, at the time, I think a little over a decade of experience.
Okay.
And we really, the first thing we did when we sat down and started talking about it was, what is it about the client agency relationship that we don't like, right?
Okay.
Um, because we had both worked in agencies and we had both worked in agencies locally, and we're just like, what don't we like about the client agency relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the big thing was that, agencies are treated very much like vendors, very much like suppliers, not seen as real partners. And we felt like that was come from a lack of trust. And then I spent some time talking to CMOs and brand managers. Like, what don't you like about your agency? And the big thing was that, we see them as vendors because they don't think, they're not proactive, right? They're not strategic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're just, we tell them what to do, they make the picture, they go, right? They're not thinking about my business. Um, and so one of the things we said about YBR at the very beginning was that we don't want to be a service provider. We want to be a partner in your business.
All right.
Um, we want to help you think through your business problems. So our job is not to make pictures. Our job is to help you make money, right? And so
Okay.
that was the difference for us. So we're always thinking from the very beginning about our client's bottom line, right?
Mhm.
How is this going to help them make more money? And part of it is obviously that, one of the founders is a strategist, and so
Okay.
YBR has become known as an agency that's really known for its strategy, right? That's what we do, great creative, but our strategy, right? And the fact that we will think about your business with you,
Okay.
right? We will think about your business with you. We'll be like, this product, it does, right? I remember years
Okay.
ago we had a banking client and they had this account. I just remember saying to the founder, like, who is this thing for? Why do you have this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, because, so and so bank has it. I'm like, but what does that have to do with your customers? I'm like, this thing is like, literally, take all this money and burn it. You will get the same effect, right? Which isn't something that you should say to a client, but like, I was like, don't, like, this campaign you want to do, it doesn't make sense. And,
Mm-hmm.
while on the commercial side, my business partner was like, stop turning down work. But at the time, I think the client appreciated the
Mm-hmm.
fact that we sat them and I said, okay, look, what are you actually trying to achieve? What is your end goal? Okay, here are other ways you can get there, right? That are
Mm-hmm.
more effective, more efficient, maybe a little bit
Yeah.
cheaper. And so when we started Yellow Brick Road, it was really for us. We wanted to change how clients thought about agencies. We
Okay.
wanted to be a business partner. And so, my guys all the time, I'm like, they're sick of me because I'm like, where does your client's money come from? Right? What's
Mm-hmm.
their source of volume? What's their source of value? Do you understand, right? Like their business model? Because you
Okay.
can't do effective community. You can do really creative stuff. It's not effective communication unless you know that your job is to. I said our job is to sell the soap, guys. Our job is to get people to open their wallet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we have to understand like what kind of money, how much money, um, right? And sometimes that impacts the kinds of campaigns that we do. I remember years ago we had a client, and we'd gone in this is actually really, really it was a turning point for me, and
Mm-hmm.
it's probably informs a lot of the way that we work at YBR. Um,
Yeah.
so pre YBR, I had this client, and we had gone and we shown him this big campaign, and he said, okay, so what's my cost per acquisition on this? And this is one, it wasn't even like, this was, this is in the early 2017. It wasn't even like a tech, 2014. It wasn't even like oh shit, 2012. Sorry. Even, God, I'm so old. Um, 2012, right? And they were taking a new thing to market. And he was just like, okay, so if you're, okay, so we spend all this money and I'll have 1 million customers. What's my cost per acquisition? And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's about so and so. He said, what's my average revenue per customer? I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, I have no idea. He said, okay, so then this thing that you've built, it would
Mm-hmm.
take me 3 years to recoup because my average cost per customer is this. And I
Okay.
was like, wow, I felt so stupid. And so, because I
Oh
hadn't thought
dear.
about it, right? I hadn't thought about it. And so from that day, and it's really essential thing at YBR is you have to understand your client's revenue model so that you're not suggesting things to them that don't make financial sense.
Okay.
Right. So that, I guess, from a journey perspective is, we sat down and we wanted to do something. We'd worked in agencies for decades, and we wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do, when this is how I would do it if my name was on the door.
Okay.
But we really sat down and looked at, from our perspective first, what was it about that relationship that we didn't like, and then spend some time talking to clients around what didn't they like, right,
Okay.
about the agency relationship, and try to build a business that would solve for both those things. I mean, it's not perfect and we don't always get it right, but it is sort of the central tenet of our business, is that we want to be a partner to your business,
Okay.
and that we think about your business and we think about your bottom line, um, as opposed to just we want to do really cool creative stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much for that insight. If you are still there, drop your comments. I mean, it's really getting very interesting here. I am
Mm.
getting a lot of value. I don't know if you are. I can see the comments, and definitely I'm going to do a shout out. Tell us where you're watching from, and maybe if you like, you can chip in what you do, and that would be nice to know. Okay, so I've got a few questions, and we are going to call it a wrap. So tell us what, how you go about improving an idea that I've been in this space where okay,
Mm.
we're working in a particular product, and then because the person you're working with or the person in charge is such an idea person.
Mm.
He has a lot of ideas running through his head, and then we already have a plan. Okay, we want to do this, and then he comes the next morning and says, "Oh, we're going to do it like this," and I think it's going to be better. And then you're
Mm.
trying to okay, you have re-strategized, and then he comes back 2 3 days later and say, "Okay, look at how we're going to do this." I'm thrown away. I'm lost because I don't understand. What are you saying? Where are we going to? Where? So I'm confused as to how do you want us to even achieve this thing? I know you like to do
Mm.
this because you have experience or whatever, but how? So my question basically is, how do you go about improving an idea that is already in motion, you're
Mm.
already working on it, and then you want to improve the idea without messing things up?
So I think that that's where your roadmap comes in, right?
Okay.
So, I talked about earlier about the minimum lovable product, right? So, because also part of the reality of the world is that you can test all you want to and you can do all the research that you want to. Until your product is actually out in the wild, you don't really know,
No,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and I think, a lot of founders are very enthusiastic and have small ADHD. And so getting them to focus is
Okay,
hard.
okay,
Um, and so I have a partner that I'm working with now on a project, and he's very much like this, right? Like, literally, like my WhatsApp is like now blowing up. It's like every 6 minutes, it's like, and we could do this. So I built a Google, like, it's called the parking lot Google sheet,
okay.
and like anytime you have an idea, just write it here. Anytime you have an idea, just write it here, right? So there's a place for them to get it out. I'm like, whatever the
Okay,
fantastic the idea, voice notes, whatever, just put it here. And then,
okay,
on a regular basis, right, we sit down, we look at them, and we say, okay, which ones are actually possible? Which ones are just mad? Which ones are later?
okay.
Which ones do we know now? And then you schedule them, right? But I think the thing about that you have to remember is that until you're actually in the market, you don't have a product.
Okay.
And so this goes back to this idea about like waiting for perfection, right? If you
Mhm.
keep tinkering, we're going to do it this way, doing it, you never actually do it. All
Hmm.
you're doing is tinkering, right? So at some
Yeah.
point, you have to just go,
Do.
right? And so this is the thing: is like you have to just agree. This is the base product. This is
Okay.
the thing that we're going to take to market first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
and be building that. And once that's going, what is the next one and how soon should it come,
All
right?
right.
Because nothing is static, right?
Okay.
Everything is, if it's a beverage, okay, we have, um I don't know, we're making juice. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what we have now is an orange farm. Oh, but it
Okay.
might be great if we had, okay, but we don't have the lemons yet. So
Mm-hmm.
let's make the orange juice first.
That's first.
Then once the orange juice is in the market, we'll be looking for the lemons. When we find the lemons, we'll then do the lemon juice.
All right.
Once we have the lemons, you start looking for the apples, right? Like, so you don't say no,
Mm-hmm.
right? You just have to schedule the changes, right? So you
Okay.
have to think about it from the way that they do in tech, right? Apple, I was like every 2 days there's an update. And it's like, these
Mm-hmm.
people don't know this thing was necessary, but you have to get it to the market and see how
Yes.
people use it, and then, right, you build. And so I think it's really taking that philosophy, I think the tech philosophy, which is
Mm-hmm.
that, at least the software philosophy, which is that every product is always in a state of evolution,
Okay.
right? So nothing is final. You're not,
Yeah.
until you take it off the market, there's no final.
Yeah.
Which means that we don't have to implement all the changes now, because this thing you want to do is really cool. And we
Mm-hmm.
could do it in 3 months, and that could be news and give us an additional story and give us a way to access other people, but we still need the first, 10,000 people,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
how you do it.
All right. Thank you very much. So I think I have two more questions, and I think maybe we'll just take one or two from the audience and we'll call it a wrap. So I
Mhm.
have this experience with um, thinking about ideas, okay, and
Mhm.
how people go about validating their ideas, basically. So there's this the way you go about validating in such a way that you want to just confirm your assumptions, or you want to just
Mhm.
so you're asking somebody something you feel like, okay, I want to do this for this person. I assume the person is going to need it, and so when I go about asking the person, I'm like, um, would you need something like this? Do you get? So I'm obviously throwing it.
Mhm.
I'm giving it to the person so that they tell me
Mhm.
what I want to hear. And when the person
Mhm.
is not saying that they need it, it feels like, oh, this is rubbish. Okay. And then if they're giving you what you want to hear, you're nodding. Oh wow, this there's an idea here.
Mhm.
So tell us, how do we be able to get to draw the line to understand when people are just giving us the yes answers, that is not really the thing, that those things
Mhm.
that we're looking to hear, if they are really valuable, they can help the product. How do we get the truth out of the customer, basically? How do we get the truth out of them as to what they really need?
I think you you don't ask people unless until you have the actual thing when you're like, here to play with it,
Yeah.
right? User testing. But I think before that, you talk to people about their needs, their challenges, and their desires
Okay.
and their ambitions, right?
Okay.
So depending on the cat, so okay, so this is an example that I use when I teach. Um, and so I made up a baby soap, right? And I said, oh, so babies don't breast soap.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go talk to the
Okay.
parent. But you don't go to a parent and say, oh, which baby soap do you like? You talk to them about bath time,
Mm-hmm.
right? What is bath time? Like, what is your favorite part of bath time? What is your least favorite part of bath time? Is there anything about bath? Like, what do you have any anxiety about bath time?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the components of a really great bath time for you, for baby?
Okay.
Right? You ask them about their
All
experience,
right.
and then you walk away and say, okay, so, and mothers will tell you that the bath time is it's a time for me to bond.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's something to bond with my baby. Um, it's when I think about what I want to use, I want to make sure that I'm able to express how much I care about my child. I want things to be gentle. I want things to be natural, right? Because it's really this is the time when your skin's and so when you understand the psychology and the practical functional needs around bath time, you can go away and say, okay, so what they're really looking for is X, Y, Z,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if I'm like, okay, what do you want in a baby soap? Okay, I want it to smell nice and be gentle. That's not right. But if you ask them about bath time, if you ask them about motherhood,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you ask them about, how has your life changed, right? Between before you had a child. So the interesting thing is we actually did this as a practical years ago, but I now use it as a sort of a teaching tool. And a lot of women talk about the fact that once you become a mother, it's like you stop being like a woman, right? Like I used to be a baddie, and then I became a mom, and all of a sudden, like I'm not a baddie anymore. And so there could be there's an and if you look at sort of all baby soap or baby products, it's all sort of very same. It's
Mm-hmm.
soft and beautiful,
Yeah.
or it's like, oh my god, motherhood is so hard, just you need rescuing. But right, there's very few baby brands that acknowledge that like a mother is not the only thing you are, or
Mm-hmm.
father is not the only thing you are. You're still like have all these other dimensions. And so what if you had a baby brand that was like for you, baby, and the rest of your life, right? So I think you have to ask people questions around, like I said before, their needs, their desires, their ambitions,
Mm-hmm.
the challenges in their life,
Okay.
and in your category,
Okay.
right? What do you hate about buying a car? Or what do you like? What is your like when you where do you shop and why? What's your favorite thing about, I don't know, your when you're on if you're a telco, like, what is your favorite thing to search? Like, what does access to the internet? How do you feel when you don't have access to
Mm-hmm.
the internet, right? Understanding how they use your category and how they might use your product and what that product means
Mm-hmm.
is, I think, the best way
Yeah.
to get the information. So don't ask them, oh, do you want this, right? Ask them about the experience of doing the thing that you want to help them do,
All right. Thank you.
good and bad.
That's really really takes it. So please, if you have questions, you can drop them in the comments. While I'll take the last question, just write it down. So that once Nnenna is done taking this question, she will take yours. All right. So my last question will be: how do you communicate your solution the way a customer needs it, so that you are able to speak the language of the customer? I think I had an event I attended, and then I asked a major fintech company here in
Mm,
Lagos, in Nigeria basically. And I asked her, how do you guys go about marketing? And she says they don't. I mean, the person said they
mm,
don't invest in marketing. I was in a tech event,
mm,
and they had a booth in the tech event. And then I'm asking, if you don't do marketing, what are you doing here? So how do you communicate the solution, especially for tech startups that think that, oh, they don't really have to engage people. Back then when our mothers used to sell, they usually
mm,
call out on the streets, oh, come and
mm.
buy this, come and buy that. Okay, they do all that marketing and put all that effort into making sure that they sell. How do you communicate your solution in a way that, even though you're a tech startup and you think that, oh, the only time you get to engage the customer is when you want to know their needs, how do you tell
Mm.
them?
Oh, what else? Well, I think the question is how do you tell your story most effectively? I think it really goes back to one, understanding who you're telling the story to. Um,
Okay.
because I think the first thing is, I think the biggest one of the biggest fallacies in tech is that if you build it, they will come. They won't come if they don't know you're
Hmm.
there, right? Like that's literally it. If nobody knows you're there, nobody can come. Um,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of people think about marketing as just advertising, right? Like, oh, I've been doing ads and that's the thing. No, I think you have to one. It really, I think, at the end of the day, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. What problem are you solving, and who are you solving it for? That's what you have to tell them, right? I make it easier for you to do this. We had years and years ago, we worked with a bank, um, and when they were launching their mobile banking application, um, we talked to people about, like, what do you hate about, like, going to the branch, right? Like,
Okay.
what's this, because it's a branch replacement, right? Um, and the bank had its own reasons for wanting for people to use the mobile app, which is that basically branches are very expensive to run and they want people to stop coming, right? Um, but they're like, okay, we're selling convenience. But as it turned out, people really, the biggest issue is time, right? It's just like, literally, I have to, it's a minimum of half an hour or an hour. Like,
Hmm.
I just could be doing something better with time. And so literally that was the campaign. The
Okay.
campaign was around get your time back, right? And we just took average times, like, 11 more minutes to do whatever, or 20 more minutes to spend with your daughter, or whatever it was, right? Because we understood that really the thing about the brand, and this is, early days, in the beginning of, mobile banking, was just time. And so we're like, okay,
Yeah.
what people hate about the branch is time. So let's talk to them about getting their time back, because that's what they've told us they care about or they hate,
Hmm.
right? So it's really, again, understanding who you're solving a problem for, and really understanding what their actual problem is, right? It wasn't actually for them about convenience at the time. Now we talk to people, it's like, look, I just want, like, stability is a big thing, right?
Hmm.
Every time I open it, I want it to work. I don't want to have to wait for things, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, the seamlessness and stability and robustness now is a different kind of conversation. In the beginning, it was just like, see, you don't have to spend 1 hour waiting for one teller to attend to you. Um, and that was really compelling. But that was, 12 years ago. You couldn't tell that story now because, one, everybody has a banking app and the conversation has changed. And so part of it is really understanding, again, what are the pain points in your category? What is it that you make better or easier or faster or whatever? How do people really want to feel, and how do you help them do that? The great thing about this time also is that there is so much data out there. Like, just simple social listening will help you understand how people are talking about your category and your competition, and you can literally pick up the language from there, right? Because people are online every day complaining about everything, right? So
Yeah.
you can literally, just using social listening, HubSpot is your friend, using social listening, understand, like, build the word cloud of, like, what do people say about your category? Um, what are the negative things they say? What are the positive things they say? And is there an opportunity to either turn a negative, or, like, pick one of
Hmm.
the things that they really like and then build on that? So I think,
That's
yes,
it.
listening to your
Thank you
customers and
very
using their
much.
own language is
Uh,
useful.
this has been really insightful, a really insightful session. I mean, I'm so excited because I know that I was looking forward to this, and I'm very sure that I wasn't disappointed. I don't know, nobody here is disappointed. We're excited to have you share this. It's really been helpful. If especially for me, also in the product line,
Mhm.
I'm basically going to take some of this insights and use them for work. So if there are any questions, there are no questions, then I will call it a wrap and say
Okay.
thank you for joining us. Nnenna. I am super grateful for having you come and share and then laugh with us and take time to pour out this wealth of knowledge. If you don't mind, if possible, you could give us your handles so that
Yes.
people can follow you up and how can they connect with you? And
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay, so you can find me Instagram or LinkedIn, the Barefoot Strategist. Um,
okay,
I'm there.
the barefoot strategist. All
The
right.
Barefoot Strategist. Yeah.
Okay. Please go and follow Nnenna at the. I don't know what's the idea behind the barefoot strategist. What is
Okay,
that?
so maybe this will be my closing story. So
All right.
in 2012, I think it was, um,
Mm-hmm.
I was part of the first TEDx Lagos,
Oh wow.
and
That's
and
beautiful.
I don't know who begged me to wear high heels that day, but I was like, yeah, I'll be cute and be on stage.
Oh my god.
And then I got there and I had on like, I'm not the tallest person in the world. It's like, when I was younger, I liked to, wear the
Mm-hmm.
heels. I had like 4-inch heels on. But I hadn't been to the venue, so I hadn't seen the design. And they
Mm-hmm.
had like this long glass like walkway, and then you presented at the end, right? So you didn't present on the stage. You had to walk down this like glass like runway, and then there was like a little like circular stage. And I got on stage and I looked at this thing and I said to myself, if you fall here, there's no coming back. Like there's literally
Oh my god. Oh my
you
god.
will you will shame your dead parents. There's just you will have to just move back to America. And so I stood there for a second and I just said to the audience, I don't want to reduce my bride price. Please, I hope you don't mind. Let me take off my shoes. And it got a big laugh, right? They got a big laugh
Okay.
in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I finished my, so if you like, if you go and you look for the TED, I'm like literally like wandering around the stage in my bare feet. It's ridiculous.
All right.
But what I realized in that moment was because it got a big laugh and then everybody relaxed. And there's often when you get up on stage to talk about something, right? You're
Yeah.
the expert.
Yes.
Um, and there's often like a distance between you and the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that there's resistance in that distance, right? But when I get on stage, and so I'm now called the barefoot strategist because every time I get on stage, pretty much I take off my shoes, right? And it's a thing that I do. It's a bit that I do.
That's
Um,
nice.
but it makes me a little bit more human.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing it because I got a big laugh and I was like, okay, this is fine. And I'm also a very nervous speaker. Like I actually don't like public speaking. It's terrifying. I do it a lot, but it terrifies
Okay.
me. And so it's also like a moment for me to just relax and whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe a couple of years after that, and this is actually when I took up the name, was I'd gone to speak at something and I did the same thing. I was like, see, I'm going to take off my shoes because if I fall in this place, my bride price will reduce. I
Yeah.
was still looking for a husband. And like afterwards, right? Afterwards, a young man came up to me. He said, I have to tell you the truth. He said, when they announced you and you got up, I just thought, here's another one of these stupid silver spoon kids coming to tell me what I should be
My
doing with my
God.
life, right? Because he'd heard the accent. He said, when you took off your shoes, I'm like, okay, this one is a real person, right? I just thought,
Uh-huh.
okay, actually, this is it. So now I'm the barefoot strategist because 9.5 times out of 10, if I'm
Mm,
presenting, I'm in my bare feet.
that's a great way to brand yourself. I think I should begin to think in this like I like the touch of humanity
Hmm.
with the brand. It really is cool. Honestly, Nana, I look forward to having you again. With
Oh, I'd
all
love to
that
come
we've had
back. Thank you
here,
so
I
much.
look forward to having you again. I definitely won't trade that for anything. Thank you so much for sharing. But the next time, I know that this is going to be a more a room where it's obviously going to be a town hall that is
Mm.
different. Yeah. so um, so very very well. I want to say thank you on behalf of everyone that joined in. Please, I mean, if you can, you just say a thank you to Nana. It was awesome having to learn 7 ways to discover why your next business or product idea may fail. And we pointed a lot of things. She talked about your lovable product as against your minimum viable product. You want to consider testing too. Don't just push stuff out there that you do not test and then get people asking, what is this doing here? All right. And then ask people about their experience rather than shoving down what you want to do for them. Ask them about their experience as it relates to your product category. And
Mhm.
also take note of um, your revenue projections. If you're looking at talking to investors, take note of your business model, your traction, look at those things. Don't just go there selling them innovation. Innovation is overrated these days, okay? All right. So thank you very much. Roosevelt is saying, thanks, Nina, for this great discussion. Thank you for
Thank
joining.
you.
Thank you so much. And definitely, we will be coming back again with. I've put Nina's at on the screen. See it there at the barefootstrategist.ig. You can also connect with her on LinkedIn as well. All right. And definitely we'll be having this session again. Sean will be joining us. And please, if you haven't joined the community yet, you can go on LinkedIn to search us up at Tech It to Markets on LinkedIn. Also, we also have a WhatsApp community, and basically, the desire or the goal for these conversations is to see how we can humanize our technology. Okay, enough of we want to build and change the world. Let's talk about people. Let's connect the dots. Let's not separate these two entities because that's why they exist and they should coexist. All right, and then please share this if you are on YouTube. Share this to your friends. They might really want to learn something from this. Share with them. You can also follow me on Instagram at Jude Onyedeke. You can follow me on Twitter at the Jude Onyedeke. You can also connect with me on other social media platforms with the same name. Thank you very much, Nina. I want to see you next time, and I'm definitely going to reach out. Please expect that.
Oh, please do. Thank you so much for having me, Jude. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that folks found it useful. And remember, this is
Yeah.
also 7 ways to discover why your next business and product might
I
succeed.
Yeah, thank you so much. Celebrate you. You do have a nice day and bye bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.